On February 11th, 2019, Giuliani texted Miss Dunphy, "You're mine, and nobody will ever have you now. I am dreaming about you." A former employee of Rudy Giuliani is suing him under the New York Adult Survivors Act for rape. According to the lawsuit, he forced her to give him oral sex during phone calls with important people. Giuliani often demanded that she work naked, in a bikini, or in short shorts with an American flag on them that he bought for her. When they were apart, they would often work remotely via video conference, and during those conferences, Giuliani almost always asked her to remove her clothes on camera. He often called from his bed where he was visibly touching himself under a white sheet. Jesus Christ. Kahenda, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Meets up for 9 months. Biggest Bosnian fan with a 9-month for Big Dick Dylan. I salute your work, comrade Slava Ukraini. I don't know if the word, I think there was a bad timing, Big Dick Dylan, as I'm reading about Rudy Giuliani sexually harassing his staff. It's like, oh, Rudy Giuliani sexual harassment. By the way, shout out to Big Dick Dylan. Like, I'm just, maybe not the best timing, but I do appreciate the tier 1 sub from a Bosnian fan. Hey, who doesn't love Bosnia here? We all love Bosnia here. Throughout the employment and attorney-client relationship, Giuliani forced Miss Dunphy to perform oral sex on him. He often demanded oral sex while he took phone calls on speakerphone from high-profile friends and clients, including then-President Trump. Giuliani told Miss Dunphy that he enjoyed engaging in this conduct while on telephone because it made him feel like Bill Clinton. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, dude. Oh, man. You know what I say about, like, when these stories drop, we need to wait for it to come out and it all be true and accurate. I'm not waiting here. I'm not waiting. I know this is real. I spiritually feel it in my soul that this is something that Rudy Giuliani would do. That not only would he have these women perform oral sex on him during these high-profile phone calls, but that his explanation would be, I get to feel like Bill Clinton. Number one, doesn't it say something that what Rudy Giuliani wants to achieve, his like pinnacle of alpha male masculinity, is a Democrat, Bill Clinton. Just want to put that out there, something psychological out there for a moment. But number two, the irony of how much Bill Clinton has been lambasted by the conservative right, only for them to immediately be like, God, I wish that was me. Sometimes this would happen when Rudy was strategizing with Trump on how to stop Mueller. Upon information and belief, some of the individuals who Giuliani spoke with on these calls were law clients of Mr. Giuliani, such as Mr. Trump, who were unaware that Miss Dunphy was in the room and could overhear their conversations. At certain time, Miss Dunphy overheard discussions which contained, upon information and belief, privileged or confidential information. These discussions included, for example, strategies on how to deal with the investigation being conducted by Mr. Robert Mueller, and whether it might be possible to distract, intimidate, or otherwise dissuade Mueller from proceeding against Trump. The lawsuit goes into a lot of detail about Rudy's constant drinking. During this time, the work environment was regularly affected by Giuliani's chronic alcoholism. Giuliani was rarely sober around Miss Dunphy, since he regularly drank all day and night. It became part of Miss Dunphy's responsibilities to fetch his alcohol and make sure that he was functioning alcoholic. She worked hard to ensure that despite Giuliani's excessive drinking, he did not appear drunk. If Giuliani became too drunk, it was her job to remove him from the situation. Ultimately, the most important and time-consuming aspect of Miss Dunphy's job became preventing Giuliani from creating media disasters. During this time, when Miss Dunphy was not by his side, he appeared with hair dye dripping from his forehead, appeared to be wearing excess amounts of self-tanner, and hosted a press conference in the parking lot of Four Seasons Total Landscaping. Oh my goodness. So there is something to be said about the fact that she was also just good at her basic job. I don't really know if she was good at blowing him under his desk. I obviously I can't speak to that. She should not be doing that. That's not under her job description. I would say probably when you look at the paperwork, it does not probably say you will be polishing my knob in the job description. But when it comes to actually keeping Rudy Giuliani from making a fool of himself, it seems that she was decent enough at doing it until he was away from her. He just can't control himself from being a clown. While the abuse was going on, Rudy Giuliani was not paying her and was helping her, keeping her employment a secret. All the while, Giuliani was telling Ms. Dunphy that he needed to keep deferring her pay and keep her employment secret, but he promised her that she would eventually be paid in full and received credit for her work. Giuliani also continued to tell Ms. Dunphy that his divorce would settle any day, and that he and his companies would make her whole by paying what she owed. To tide Ms. Dunphy over and to keep her obedient to him, Giuliani sometimes paid Ms. Dunphy in increments of no more than $5,000 in cash at random times. For example, Giuliani paid Ms. Dunphy $4,000 in cash on February 1st, 2019, before she traveled from New York to Florida as part of her deferred pay. She overheard conversations about plans to claim voter fraud if Trump lost the 2020 election. On February 7th, 2019, Giuliani told Ms. Dunphy to take a note to remind him to pay taxes on a private jet ride he was gifted by a friend. The same day, Giuliani told Ms. Dunphy, in her capacity as his employee, about a plan that had been prepared for if Trump lost the 2020 election. Specifically, Giuliani told Ms. Dunphy that Trump's team would claim that there was voter fraud and that Trump had actually won the election. This plan was discussed at several business meetings with Giuliani and Liv Partners. So, there's so much to break down here. We're going to have to wait till we get through all of it to start breaking down some of the points. There's just so much of it. I don't feel like I'll be able to really cover it all. Kendra, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Kahina, thank you so much for the $5. I apologize for the inappropriate choice of words. Giuliani is a sick, disgusting human being. No worry, man. I don't think you meant to do that on purpose, buddy. No worry. I appreciate it. 420 from Naomi Reagan. Hey, Dylan. I wanted to congratulate you for getting unbanned on Twitch. I love your content. A bit surprised to see you back on this hellhole. Twitch is really going down the toilet. First Destiny, now you and I. Twitch doesn't respect you guys. Y'all really got to switch to Kick, especially with their enticing 95-5 sub split. Dude, nobody on Kick is interested on in-depth Ukraine coverage and foreign policy coverage. I mean, maybe the debates, but a lot of my content would just not fly there, man. It's been hard to garner the evidence that I have, the audience that I have now. I think it'd be 10 to 20 times harder if I wanted to garner that audience on Kick, which seems to have a right-wing to far-right bent from what I've been told, right? I think it would be pretty difficult to get many of you guys to make the switch, if I'm being completely blunt, but I do appreciate the bits. But on this part of Giuliani discussing how they're going to deny that Trump lost and claim voter fraud before the 2020 election even happened, that doesn't surprise me at all. We have audio of Donald Trump calling the Secretary of State of Georgia and trying to intimidate them into him finding the exact amount of votes necessary to overturn the results of the election in Georgia. This is somebody who was very blatant about the type of criminal activity and anti-democratic activity that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and all of his lawyers were engaged in. He was very blatant at that type of behavior. In the lead up to the 2020 election, Donald Trump said on multiple occasions that if he loses the election, it was rigged. He was preparing to lose in a way where he could deny his loss no matter the scenario. And this isn't even the first time in going into 2020 that he's made types of claims around that. When he won the 2016 election, he made claims that were never proven of millions of illegals voting for Hillary, so he lost a popular vote. During the during the primary for the Republican Party, anytime he lost, he would claim that the loss was not due to legitimate means, but due to illegitimate means, that it was being manipulated against him, that votes were being stolen, that these elections were rigged against him. He cannot accept loss under any circumstances, and a democracy cannot function if one of the major parties does not accept when it loses. Let's keep going. She has recordings and texts and emails. Here's one where Rudy says she's his and no one else can have her now. Oh my goodness, let me read this. At the same time, Giuliani kept trying to control Miss Dunphy. On February 11th, 2019, Giuliani texted Miss Dunphy, "You're mine, and nobody will ever have you now. I am dreaming about you," says Rudy Giuliani. Miss Dunphy responds, "I can't believe you is more crowded on a Monday at 9 p.m. than I've ever seen it." And then Rudy Giuliani responds, "Leave!" exclamation point. "You're mine." Then she responds, "I'll leave the second the Gustavo arrives." Then he responds, "Nobody will ever have you now." What is this talk? Like he legitimately owns her, and he's bought her through money, and not even like good money, like $5,000 deferral payments. It's not even good money. It's not even clean money. Getting paid a low amount of money to slob on Rudy Giuliani's knob to keep him from making a mess of himself in public. And can I tell you, from just seeing how Rudy Giuliani behaves, it is not surprising that he needs somebody to keep him from making a fool out of himself in public. And I don't think that it was an easy task. It is something that probably deserves a ton more payment than she got. And she wasn't even getting the money. It was being held off. And that's what he thinks owns another human being's bought him ownership of another person. Number one, you can't pay enough money that this person now just has to be at their beck and call. That's not how, a good employee-employer relationship works. There has to be off time. But thinking that you've just paid enough money to a person that you control their body is insane. Especially when, again, he's not even paying her that well, man. God damn. He is like the most stereotypical sleazy New Yorker you could possibly imagine. He told her that he and Donald were selling pardons for $2 million a pop, which he would split with Donald Trump. He also asked Miss Murphy if she knew anyone in need of a pardon, telling her that he was selling pardons for $2 million, which he and President Trump would split. He told Miss Murphy that she could refer individuals seeking pardons to him, so long as they did not go through the normal channels of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, because correspondence going to that office would be subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. Oh my God, that's fucking hilarious. He was like, "Look, okay, I pay you to blow me. You seem trustworthy enough to ask you if you know anybody who's willing to pay $2 million for a pardon. You seem trustworthy enough. I let you touch my penis. Please, here's some criminal activity I'm engaged in." Now, here is the rape allegation. Okay, here comes to the actual rape allegation. So before we read the rape allegation, sorry, I was just looking over a note. Before we read the rape allegation, I just want to go through a few of the big details we just went through, because I want to refresh your memory, because we just went through a lot. So first off, she was able, Rudy Giuliani was paying his secretary to A, keep him from making a fool of himself in public, B, stop him from appearing too drunk on camera, and C, give him oral while he's giving important phone calls. And these important phone calls were full of a lot of very, very sensitive information, including plans with Trump on how to stop the Mueller investigation, including his information, which he just directly told her about how he's selling pardons, information about how they were planning to deny the 2020 election before it even occurred, and texts from him talking to her like he owns her, like he's owning another human being. So there's all of the basic information we've been through so far of this disgusting pig that is being painted, this picture of a disgusting pig that's being painted by this legal filing. Now let's read the rape allegation. On February 23rd, 2019, Giuliani told Ms. Dunphy that he could get in trouble with underage girls if they were 16 but looked 20. The conversation was recorded. During the same conversation, Giuliani discussed work-related issues with Ms. Dunphy, including reimbursement of the hotel she booked. As his assistant, she arranged for his dry cleaning orders. On February 25th, so these are 2 days after he commented about the underage girls, Giuliani forced Ms. Dunphy to have sexual intercourse with him for the first time. Before this, Ms. Dunphy had refused and avoided having sex with Giuliani, although he had forced her to engage in other sexual contact. But on February 25th, Giuliani told Ms. Dunphy that he would not wait any longer to have sex with her. Ms. Dunphy objected and told Giuliani repeatedly that she did not want to have sex, but Giuliani would not take no for an answer. He eventually forced her into having sexual intercourse with him. She never consented to intercourse, but she eventually stopped resisting because it was clear that he would not stop pressuring her. So this doesn't get into a full timeline of exactly what happened. Like, here's how many times he requested, or, you know, I said no and I like pushed him away. It doesn't get into all that details, but you get the bare bones of it, which is that she said no after Giuliani requested more than the oral and other sexual acts that she was performing for him on a regular basis beforehand. Giuliani was like, no, I want this now. And she was like, no. And he kept pushing it until eventually she basically stopped resisting, which is unbelievably disgusting behavior and is still a form of rape. Even if it's not like the picture of rape that is painted a lot in media of like, you know, the person comes in with a brick, bashes you over the head, knocks you out, and then violates you. If you basically corner a woman, which again, we don't know all the details. We're going to have to wait for more of these details to come out as this legal process bears out. And I think the number one thing I should be emphasizing here is so far all we have is a legal filing that claims to have a lot of evidence of these things, like recordings, which I hope will be made publicly available as this legal proceeding continues to go on. So we got to wait for this legal proceeding to play itself out. Not only because we want to make sure that these claims are verified and we want to see and look at all the evidence, but we want to see exactly the full timeline of events, because right now we only have one legal filing from one side of the story. Ms. Dunphy objected and told Giuliani repeatedly that she did not want to have sex. This is going to be the important part when it comes to the allegation of rape. Is going to be and this is just true if this case goes through and there's a, you know, Rudy Giuliani rejects it and he doesn't pay it outside of court to get around this case. If it does go through, it's going to come down to how did she say no? When did she say no? What did Giuliani do to try to force her? We're going to probably see statements from the Giuliani camp surrounding if they admit to this conduct, which might be a smart strategy to get him out of the case when it comes to the rape allegation, but would probably be bad for his image no matter what. If they might end up going for the argument, look, she engaged in sexual behavior with Giuliani all these other times. This is no different than all these other times, and she doesn't have evidence to the contrary. That might be the argument they make in the case. We don't know. Again, it's just legal filing. At this point, we're going to have to wait and see. Per the lawsuit, while I want to stop saying it for YouTube reasons, they'll demonetize the video. While violating her, Rudy would call her a C word, a B word, and Rudy's slut, and would discuss BDSM. For example, during the violation, he called her a C word, B word, and Rudy's slut, and discussed his interest in BDSM. The only reason I'm saying C word, B word is YouTube, which refers to bondage, dominance, satanism, and masochism with her. Mrs. Dunphy reportedly told Rudy Giuliani that she was not interested in participating in such conduct. Indeed, Giuliani was well aware of Ms. Dunphy's aversion to physical violence or emotionally abusive language of any kind, real or simulated, because of his work as her attorney in connection with her domestic violence case. Nevertheless, he continuously talked about BDSM and violent sex and demanded that she engage in such conduct. Rudy hits Ms. Dunphy while violating her per the lawsuit. During a discussion about Ms. Dunphy's case, Giuliani initiated sex with her. While violating her, Giuliani kept talking about the case and told Ms. Dunphy that he would get the best settlement agreement for her. Giuliani also smacked her in the face and then told her that the smack was cute. Since Ms. Dunphy and Giuliani had been drinking since the morning, Ms. Dunphy was intoxicated and could not have consented to sex with Giuliani. Okay, so this is all of the information that we have right now on this case, which again is just coming from her legal filing, which is with New York's Adult Survivors Act. For those of you who don't know what New York's Adult Survivors Act is, it is an act that allows people to get some reimbursement for these types of crimes, for sexual violence crimes, that they would maybe not be able to win when it comes to like, for example, putting Rudy Giuliani behind bars. And so the purpose of this case is not going to be, let's see if we can get enough evidence to put Rudy Giuliani in the electric chair or put him behind bars or arrest him. That's not going to be the purpose of this case. The purpose of this case is going to be if this woman can reasonably prove that Rudy Giuliani violated her in these ways, that Rudy Giuliani engaged in these types of disgusting sexual conduct, treated her in these ways, and therefore will have to reimburse her. And so there can be a legal filing on this showing Rudy Giuliani's conduct for the public, hopefully to protect victims in the future. So when they engage with Rudy Giuliani, knowing that he might, suddenly start requesting that his clients start slobbing on his disgusting little mushroom knob. And as speaking for somebody who would very much usually be interested in men, it's not that surprising to see that nobody's that interested in slobbing on Rudy Giuliani's little mushroom knob, and that he has to engage in this type of conduct in his mind because he doesn't have any ethical standards bearing him back on sexual conduct whatsoever. I know some people might point towards the Borat footage as proof before this, but it's really not that strong. We're gonna have to wait for this case to go through. Again, right now, all we have is a legal filing from one side. Hopefully, more of this evidence is shown to the public. Hopefully, more of this audio is going to be pushed out. Well, actually, not more. Any of this audio is going to be put out into the public, not only so this woman can have justice, but also so the public knows that this person, who I know is hard to remember this, used to be the mayor of New York City, one of the most influential cities in the world, engages in this type of behavior. And for somebody who's so deeply involved in the Trump team, is regularly engaged in this behavior. Not that that's so surprising, considering that Trump himself has recently been found liable for sexual assault. Dylan, they say they have recordings, so this can get ugly for Rudy. Yeah, no matter what, this is ugly for Rudy. If he settles outside of case, then he looks guilty, and it's ugly for Rudy. If he brings it through the court system, even if he doesn't get a verdict that makes him have to pay her a dime, if any of this audio is played publicly and it's damaging for Rudy, it's ugly for Rudy. If he loses the court case, if he brings it to the courts and loses it, it's going to look ugly for Rudy. In fact, that'll probably be the worst case scenario for Rudy. But at least in that case, he could delay it for some time. No matter what, this is going to be ugly for Rudy Giuliani outside of the scenario, inside of two scenarios. One, he gets it dismissed. And two, this is all literally just completely fabricated, and we find out that the deep state is real. Which, I mean, neither of those are completely impossible, but color me a skeptic for thinking that's probably not going to happen.